For 100 years, the Akron Jewish community has continuously invested in the future of its families. Today, the Jewish Community Board of Akron supports services for infants to the elderly at the Albert and Janet Schultz Campus for Jewish Life, at the Lippman School, at the Shaw JCC, through Jewish Family Service, celebrating a century of giving and building community. "20 years after the founding of Akron, Hebrew merchants were serving the commercial needs of the village on the Ohio and Erie Canal. But it took 20 years more for 15 German immigrants to charter a congregation in 1865. The story of Akron's Jewish community begins with the story of the largest migration of families in human history.
My grandfather, Harry Rosen, came to Akron in 1916.
Well, my mother's family came from Romania, and my father's family came from Russia.
All four of my grandparents originally came from the area around Kiev, Russia.
My father's father was from Poland. My mother's parents were from Lithuania.
Well, my grandfather was fled Russia.
The Mandels came from Poland.
My father's family came from Poland.
Luckily, they made that choice and were brave enough to pick up their roots and move.
New immigrants became peddlers and grew their business to transform their packs into retail stores. By the end of the 19th century, Jewish shopkeepers marked the main streets of every urban area on the western frontier of America.
My grandfather actually had horses and wagons and painted houses and gave all the new immigrants a can of paint and a wagon and taught them how to paint.
In 1914, Akron, Ohio was in the midst of a population boom. 20,000 men worked in the rubber shops, and hundreds more arrived daily, exchanging life in the hills of Appalachia for industrial city living. Acrid rubber smoke mixed with the scent of simmering vats of cereal as Quaker puffed wheat and rice right in the middle of downtown Akron. And from every mahogany row came the orders: more men, more buildings, more machinery, more tires. On February 12, 1914, 30 visionary members of the Jewish community came together to form Federated Jewish Charities, the beginning of a 100-year commitment to raise money for those in need.
We're taught in the Torah that we, for example, do not glean the corners of the fields, but we leave them for the less fortunate. We have to take account of the widow and the orphan. And I think it's that kind of sensibility that underpins the Jewish responsibility.
It was very much a social service agency back then, grown out of the need to support a lot of indigent Jewish people. A lot of the relief that they gave were to help a man buy a horse.
Its 100 private members, prominent merchants and temple members, collected contributions and distributed funds. 400 cases of relief were handled that first year, with a budget of $3,000. In June of that year, war began in Europe. Akron factories would soon be booming to turn out material for war, and new laws restricting immigration were adopted. By 1919, the Federation could boast 600 members and was renamed the Jewish Social Service Federation. The 1920s saw Jewish institutional life thriving in Akron. The relief budget had swelled to over $11,000. In 1924, the Federation made over 1,000 weekly home calls to indigent families. The Federation had become a place where Jews could assemble, regardless of income status, religious alignment, or country of origin, and give help to the needy and aged. What was lacking was an all-inclusive institution that would meet social, cultural, and recreational needs.
The JCCs really started as a way to assimilate people into the American culture.
The Jewish Center movement was expanding nationally, and in 1929, Akron celebrated the opening of a new Jewish community center on Balch Street. Modern athletic facilities, a communal home that allowed children to be acquainted with the language, history, literature, and festivals of Jewish heritage, The center welcomed Orthodox, conservative, and Reform, rich and poor, united in the belief that heritage bound them together. That first year, 1,100 members made 61,000 visits to the JCC. The Great Depression would impact all of Akron, one of the hardest hit cities in the United States in industrial unemployment. By 1931, unemployment had overtaken all other categories for the Federation. As the country became increasingly involved in the war, so did Akron. By 1943, the Akron Center News listed the names of 450 men on active duty. After the war, Akron received its share of displaced persons. By 1953, Jewish Family Service reported a caseload averaging 13 such cases every month. In these post-war years, the community reached a peak of 8,000 people. But the post-war period signaled the end of downtown mom-and-pop stores. They could no longer compete with new shopping centers and malls. The economy changed, but many historic restrictions had not yet been lifted.
Jews were excluded from a lot of activities and organizations and neighborhoods.
Growing up, there were places I knew that my family couldn't live, and there were organizations, country clubs and others that I knew that I was not welcome.
You can still evoke a tear in many people when you talk about the old Balch Street JCC, because so many it was just the center of the universe for so many Jewish people growing up.
Even though we didn't know why we were together by ourselves, we got to know each other intimately, and we still live with those people. We're aging with those very people we met.
I remember the days when my parents could not afford to send me to the Jewish Center, and I went on scholarship. And I was going to make damn sure that anybody else that wanted to go could also go and not have to worry.
Well, I utilized the Jewish Center to get a wife. I met Diane, when you were a sophomore?
Right, I was 15.
She was 15 and I was a senior in high school. And that's when all the Jewish kids in Akron congregated at the Jewish Center.
That's where all the teenagers met and had little social clubs, and that's where I met my husband.
In 1973, the center relocated to White Pond Drive. In 1988, Hillel Academy became Lippman Day School.
We pretty much grew up on this campus. My grandparents were in the center towers, so it's really come full circle.
My children are the fourth generation of members of our community, and very proud that they all gave a gift to the Centennial Campaign.
The JCBA has been very instrumental in creating that union between all of the different congregations.
I came back to it after I got married and had kids.
I go to school at Lippman. I go to Hebrew class.
Our kids have grown up with a sense of Jewish identity.
That
they would not have grown up with without the JCC and the JCBA here.
And I think memories are what holds those institutions and cultural connections together.
In 1999, the Jewish Community Board of Akron became the umbrella for the JCC, Lippman School, and Jewish Family Service.
Akron stacks up in a very unique way, and that is Akron is an extremely collaborative community.
Institutions are important. The physical institution, the bricks and mortar, I think are important because it says we are here. We are someone. We still exist in Akron, Ohio, and
we care about the city.
We've left that generation in pretty good shape as far as our infrastructure is concerned. Now it's up to us and the generations that come after us to fill that with good, solid programming that appeals to everyone.
I definitely have hope. I see that in my kids. They are much more involved in Judaism, in being Jewish, in coming to the JCC for events and doing things than I ever was. And I've been drawn to it because of that.
What keeps us together is a sense of identity and a need for us to see ourselves as being a Jewish community and to maintain that Jewish identity.
It's been spectacular experience growing up in a community that cares, where people seem to just step up to what needs to get done, when it needs to get done. They're always there.
There really is a new energy and a new excitement that's going on, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
I'm very excited about what the future holds for our Jewish community.
We see that unification of purpose and of planning that we didn't have a generation ago.
It's a very warm, inviting place. It's a wonderful place to be Jewish. It's kind of nice.
It is who we are.